This is a fairly typical spoon from the late 16th century. I mean, this particular one's made in 1592 in London, and it's what's known as a seal top. They're very fond of putting little initials on the date, and if you can just, the top might have been cleaned off. You know, the next owner along didn't want somebody else's initials on it. At the same period, you get apostle spoons, 20s. Slightly larger bowl than normal, which sort of gives away its sort of provincial aspect. A London one would have a bowl more attuned to this one. And then you've got the a couple of Tudor roses is a mark for Norwich. There wasn't a hallmarking system as such on a lot of provincial pieces, so you've got to, it's a little bit more specialist. You've got to know where the symbols come from, and there's lots of specialist books that you could investigate. And by the 1660s, the apostle spoons and the seal top spoons were old hat, so they replaced them with the what's known as a Atrophied spoon was the next one along. Generally in London, you don't see seal tops or apostle spoons anything after about 1650, and then by 1660, 1670, the normal spoon is what one would term a Atrophied. That's what they call a Atrophied-ended spoon. And then by the later 1690s, early 1700s, move on to what's known as a dog nose spoon. That's really the dog nose part. If I just bring another spoon in, the spoon bowl should be somewhat more like, this is in fact a Dutch example of well, you can see the date on the back, of the 1690s. The bowl should be more in that sort of shape. This has been worked on at some point, so it's been slightly altered. Although when you see, you've got to be very careful when you see dates on the backs of spoons. It's a bit like Victorian fire backs, because something says 1551, it doesn't necessarily mean it's 1551. You know, it could be 1904. I mean, in this case, it happens to be 1692, but you know, always be a bit aware when you see a date on something. It's not necessarily the. And then by 1710, 1720, you move on to a rat tail, which is sort of a rat tail spoon, which is probably more familiar to most people. The rat running down the front of the spoon there, and you've got the rat tail on the back of the spoons. And the forks at this date would be 3-prong, but with no rat tail on the back. Unusually, it doesn't quite match the spoon. And then you move on to what's known as a Hanoverian spoon, very similar to the rat tail. Subtle difference in that the Hanoverian spoons hasn't got this broad rat tail, it's got a little, what they call a drop at the back. And then when you turn it over, it's it's a little bit flatter here. You don't get this raised ridge. And then by the 1760s and 70s, the Hanoverian is getting a little bit old-fashioned, and it gets replaced by what's known as an Old English spoon. This particular Old English spoon is 1782. It's made in London. If you notice on these two, on all the others, if there's a family crest, it's on the back. By about 1770, 1780 in England, the table is laid this way. Before that, it's laid, as they still do in France, with the back of the spoon. Whatever book you read, there's a different story why they changed. I mean, the old thing was in France, the reason why they turned the spoons back to front was when, if you're eating in a large drafty dining room, you know, and there's sort of cobwebs on the ceiling, all the gunge wouldn't drop onto the bowl of the spoon. But I don't know whether that's an old wives' tale or what. But in England, I mean, the French still maintained this back to front aspect, and they still have it, but the English changed in 1780. I mean, why the English changed, I don't know. Maybe because it's the French invented it and we didn't like the idea. My name is John Walter. I come from the London Silver Vaults in Chancery Lane in London, and I've been talking today about early English silver spoons.